Hey everyone, it's Emma, and welcome back to the Make Time podcast. Today, Helen and I are joined by Dr. Will Cole, a leading functional medicine expert who's been at the forefront of this space for over a decade. He's consulted patients around the world and is the host of one of my favorite shows, the Art of Being Well podcast, and a New York Times bestselling author focused on inflammation, gut health, and overall wellness. In this conversation, we really get into why gut health is the foundation for so much of how we feel, from our digestion to our hormones, our mood, and even our brain health. Dr. Cole breaks down the gut-brain connection in a way that finally makes sense and shares simple, actionable ways to start supporting your gut today. We also talk about how stress impacts our choices, something I know so many of us can relate to, and how even small daily habits can make a big difference over time. This episode is all about making time to support your body from the inside out. So let's make time for Dr. Will Cole. Will Cole, welcome to the Make Time podcast. We are so happy to have you here.
The tables have turned. I'm nervous.
Oh my God, you are? Please, this is a walk in the park for you.
I think it's so exciting that we're doing an episode of the Make Time podcast with Dr. Will Cole in Dear Media Studios.
Yeah, we were trying to manifest, like, maybe this will be us one day. I wonder what this is like.
Yeah.
So we feel very spoiled actually being here today.
The time is now. The time is now.
The time is now. Okay, so Will, what we love to ask our guests is, what is the most important thing we should be making time for and why?
Well, I would say this is born out of looking at tens of thousands of labs over the past 16 plus years. I've started the first functional medicine telehealth center. So I see what's keeping people back, what's keeping them back from thriving and feeling their best. And I would say a common thread. Look, there's a lot of nuance and context and bio-individuality to this concept. But if you want to talk about one thing that most people can benefit from, it's supporting their gut health. Most people, maybe it's their digestion isn't optimal, and that's part of this conversation. But gut health is so much more profoundly important with far-reaching implications beyond just how many times you're going to the bathroom. It is impacting, so your gut and brain are formed from the same fetal tissue. So when babies are growing in their mom's womb, the gut and brain are formed from the same cells, and they're inextricably linked through what's known in the research as the gut-brain axis, the connection between the gut and the brain. And if you think about it, the intestines even resemble the brain. 95% of serotonin, our happy neurotransmitter, is made and stored in the gut. 50% of dopamine, our pleasure neurotransmitter, is made and stored in the gut. Researchers call it the second brain for this reason, your gut. And also, your gut's home to 75% of the immune system. Inflammation is a product of the immune system, and most chronic health problems are inflammatory in nature. So to really understand a lot of people's autoimmune issues or metabolic problems or other sort of inflammatory problems, you have to look at where the predominance of the immune system resides, which is in the gut. So if they had to do one thing that they should make time for, it's doing at least one thing a day that loves your gut back. So maybe it's soups and stews, and the cliche of when somebody's sick to have chicken noodle soup. It's not the noodles that are making them healthy. It's the broth. It's the soft proteins. It's the soft, easy to digest vegetables. It's the kind of a proverbial siesta for a stressed out gut, which it's calming and grounding and nourishing. So make a hearty stew, I think, is a great way to do it. I would just pick something. It could be a food. It could be a breathwork practice, which improves vagal tone, which is the largest cranial nerve that's responsible for that resting, digesting aspect, the parasympathetic aspect of the nervous system. It's connecting the gut and the brain. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be complicated, nor do you have to check all the boxes, but I would do at least one thing that's loving your gut back.
So you just kind of blew my mind when you talked about how the intestines and the brain looked the same and resemble each other. That just blew my mind. I never put the two and two together until right now, today, sitting here with you. And it just, so for For women listening, we are bombarded with this gut health conversation. And I think it's just one of those areas where there's a lot of confusion. And so, how do you even know, for the women that are listening, how do they even know that they have a gut health problem?
So I've kind of checked myself on how I answer this question, because I used to say, well, start with bowel movements, and the Bristol chart is the sort of conventional metric to look at the frequency and formation. Can we talk about poop? It's okay to use the word poop. Is that not too?
We can talk all about poop.
Okay.
Let's talk about, let's make time for poop.
Yes. To me, it's like if I'm not talking about pooping within 5 minutes of meeting somebody, I think I've failed them as a functional medicine doctor. But I would say I used to say 2 to 3 snakes a day was a good check engine light if it was an issue or not. If the formation wasn't looking like a snake, or if you weren't going 2 to 3 times a day. But that's look, we're interested in optimal, not average, in functional medicine. Depending on how much somebody's eating, you could open it up to say 1 to 3 snakes a day. I'll be a little bit looser with my sort of metric there, but that should be the starting point. But as I mentioned, it could be other things as well. You could have more or less okay digestion, but have underlying gut components to other things. As I mentioned, with brain health, many hormones are converted in the gut. 20% of the thyroid hormone is converted from T4 to T3, or activating the thyroid hormone is converted in the gut. So you need a healthy gut to have healthy thyroid hormones. And I mentioned the inflammatory component. So pretty much every health problem is inflammatory in nature. So yes, it could be a downstream ripple effect that's not digestive in nature, but has a gut component. Or we can just start with looking at that 1 to 3 snakes a day, and then bloating. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, are you feeling bloating after eating? That's a big, there's an epidemic rise of that. On social media, it's a good thing, because women have destigmatized something that potty talk was just embarrassing and you wouldn't talk about it. But now women are having these conversations on social media where hashtag hot girl tummy issues is like been huge the past few years, because people are getting bloating and digestive problems from the epitomization of healthy foods, from salads and vegetables and whole foods. It's not the food's fault. It's the epidemic rise of gut health problems that we can't even digest whole foods anymore. So you have to, part of my job is to building resilience. You can have a salad without paying for it with digestive symptoms.
So what are you telling women to do? Like, what are 3 actionable tips that women can do today to start looking after their gut health?
Number 1 is, it starts with food. It doesn't end with food, but it starts with food. Every food we eat either feeds health or feeds health problems. There's no, I'm doing nothing for your biochemistry food. There's no neutral food. There's no Switzerland meal when it comes to, it's doing something. Some in significant ways, it's obvious to the person. Some in incremental ways where it's underlying and you don't really know until we look at labs and other variables when it comes to somebody's health. But I would really focusing on foods that love your gut back and be consistent with it. I mentioned at the top of the conversation to stick to maybe 1 meal. Obviously, the goal is every breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack and drink is another opportunity to do one or the other, feed health or feed health problems. And that's sort of the privilege, the responsibility, the agency that we have for our health. So really load up. I don't like to focus on all the things you quote unquote can't have or shouldn't have. That's not the healthy way to think about this. You switch your perspective around food. It's not avoiding something that doesn't love you back isn't restrictive. It's self-respect. It's self-compassion. So it's not about this list of do's or don'ts that's restrictive. It's about self-compassion and self-love and self-respect. And how that's the lens, the paradigm shift that I think people need to start to heal their relationship with food, heal their relationship with themselves, and don't let culture and society say like you deserve it to have that whatever, that thing that doesn't love you back. That's marketing. That's not self-respect. And really focusing on the things that love you back when it comes to food and habits and even people, right? I mean, what are the things that are edifying you in your life? So I think that number 1 is food. And I've written a lot about this, so they can go and tons of free information at drwillcole.com to look at different ways to use food as medicine when it comes to gut health. Number two is not just what we're feeding our body, but what are we feeding our head and our heart on a daily basis? That's impacting our biochemistry as well. You can eat the best gut healthy, anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense food under the sun, but if you're serving your body a big slice of stress every day, or not addressing that past trauma in your life, that is impacting your biochemistry just as much as a food that didn't love you back. But it's a lot more complex, nonlinear, nebulous when you talk about stress and trauma. But it should be, at least you need to be curious to say, is this something that I need to start to address in my life? Because it can spike and dysregulate that neuroimmunoendocrine axis, which is the intersection between the nervous system, inflammation, and our hormones. So it could look like breath work. It could look like trauma work. We implement things like EMDR, somatic practices for telehealth patients, journaling, which can be a great somatic practice, sort of metabolize stored trauma in the body. I love transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulators. These are like devices that go on your neck or your ear to stimulate the vagus nerve. That's regulator for the resting, digesting.
But can I stop you there on that vagus nerve device? Because
Yes.
my daughters got me one for Christmas, but they said, this is going to help you. This is going to relax you. And I thought, okay. So it's wild. Like, you put it on and it like stimulates your neck and you feel like you're being like electrocuted, but it's kind of nice as well.
You're really selling it, Emma. You're really...
I know, it's wild. And now I try to like scare my kids to put it on them, and they're like, no, don't put it on me. But I actually really like it, and I'm really hoping that this kind of wellness device works. So I'm actually happy that you're talking about it.
Yeah, it's so important. And I like it because it's something passive where you don't have to think about it. Like, you could go about your day and it's just something that's in the background stimulating that aspect of that's weak. It's because what is going on when someone's stressed out, their vagus nerve, researchers say they call it a poor vagal tone. And we need to strengthen that aspect of the nervous system. It's like a seesaw. The sympathetic fight or flight stress state is overactive and the parasympathetic is underactive. So improving gut health improves vagal tone. Breath work, meditation improves vagal tone. But those are all practices that you have to show up and do, which you should. So I like it, the devices, the vagal nerve stimulation devices, because it's not just another thing to add to your list. It's something you can do and then not think about it. Other than, again, like you said, it kind of feels like you're being electrocuted, but it doesn't have to be that severe. It's like e-stim. It's almost like e-stim on your neck or your ear.
That's right.
To describe it to somebody. Yeah.
Can we double click on the when you're stressed out, like that's when you're making the worst choices for your gut health? Because I mean, I'm so guilty here. I'm either a non-eater or I go directly for sugar. It's either one or the other. I'm just not eating and I get home at 6:00 and I'm like, oh, I didn't eat anything today. Or it's to the point where my husband is like, can you please make sure and you eat something before you get home so I can have the well-fed wife. Or I'm just, and my, I'll just grab sugar. Like, I'll grab a whole handful of hot tamales, which I know is horrible for me in so many ways. You got the red dye, you've got the sugar, you've got all the horrible things.
Helen, I am shocked that you even have hot tamales in your ecosystem.
I'm just, everybody has their thing and I'm trying. I wish they'd pull the red dye out and have them clear so it could just be the sugar. But I think that when you're stressed out, you make these bad decisions.
Yeah.
And that's me. Like, that's when I'm doing damage. Because I mean, I go to the whole, the farmer's market and I do all the things. I try and eat whole food. I don't cook from a box like my mama. But insert stress and all that goes out the window like so many other people. And just last night I was like, Tim, my husband, I'm like, I'm having like hot tamales withdrawals right now. And he's like, I'm like, no, don't. But it's just, stress equals bad decision making.
Yeah, I'm a stress eater, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a made up word for that with telehealth patients. I call it shameflammation, where it's like this things that it's bi-directional too. When you are stressed, you aren't showing up. You're not doing things that are loving you back so much, right? You're eating foods that don't love you back. You're stress eating, and sometimes it's impacting your relationships too, because you're not present. You're distracted. You may be a little bit on edge, irritable. So again, these are complex topics. People go through stressful seasons of their life, and sometimes the stressful seasons are more than one season. It's indefinite.
Yeah.
That's kind of the third thing that I was going to say is like to love your gut would be do the best you can and give the rest to God, because you can't do all the things. It's not always going to be perfect. You don't have to check all the boxes. But when you are more conscious about these first two things, then you realize, okay, the bucket's a little bit more empty. You have a little bit more wiggle room. You have a little bit more resilience in your life, and you have a little bit more to give, right? And it doesn't mean it's perfect, but you're not constantly at that tipping point every day when you are less inflamed, more regulated, more in that parasympathetic tone. You're making more decisions that love you back. You're eating foods that love you back a little bit more proactively. So I think it's a ripple effect, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then being consistent with that practice over time, you realize this epiphany that it's this paradigm shift that you want to keep doing the things that are loving you back. So there's less hot tamales in your life, Helen.
Oh my goodness. So if you have, let's say you have a healthy gut, right? What does that even look like? Like, how are you feeling?
3 snakes.
I got that. I got the 3 snakes. I'm just wondering, besides the 3, I'm sure you would feel fantastic after 3 snakes. If you were pooping 3 times a day, my God. But I'm just wondering, besides that, like, how are you moving about your day? Like, what are you feeling? Are you more clear? You've got more energy? Like your skin is glowing like yours? Like what are you feeling?
Yeah, it's more regulated, more balanced, more grounded, more centered. How this looks like on a lab, because I look at labs all day long, it's that your bacteria is balanced in your gut. You're depending on the study that you cite, we have upwards of 100 trillion bacteria in our gut, and you have 30 trillion human cells. So we all are exponentially more bacteria than human, and this sort of beautiful host for the microbiome, this gut garden that influences so much of our health. So it's reflected on our labs, I guess is another way of saying that. You feel the best version of yourself in your life subjectively, but then objectively when we run labs, you see that reflected. Your hormones are balanced, your inflammation levels calmed, your gut health markers look amazing. All of these markers are more in balance. And that doesn't mean perfection, but it does mean it's within these sort of window of thriving human health. And look, things change. We live in this crazy modern world. We can be exposed to stuff. Life can be stressful. It doesn't mean we're creating some utopian, panacea, but it just means we've built resilience for ourselves. So we can live life. Life can happen. We can live in the real world, but we're not knocked down like we used to be. We have more resilience. We have more grit, and we have that foundation that we built for ourselves.
What about if women want to supplement or take something, I know the sea of, probiotics and gut health products, it's just one of those things that I personally find really confusing. What would you recommend to somebody if they want to supplement?
Obviously, my perspective on this, both of you do that. It starts with food. I mean,
Sure.
you cannot, look, I want to say this and be careful with my words, but I truly believe you can't supplement your way out of foods that don't love you back. With that said,
Sure.
I'm not saying perfection, but we have to at least start looking at breakfast, lunch, and dinner and realizing sometimes it's just we have to show up for ourselves in that way. We have to love our bodies back in that way with our food. With that said, I see telehealth patients that aren't they're on their journey. They're learning about this stuff. And supplements can be a game changer, a tool within the toolbox, and even more powerful when you are eating nutrient-dense foods that love you back. So I really am... I've seen so much movement, and maybe that's a bad pun here. So much balance, so much optimal improvements of labs with the implementation of something called postbiotics. Postbiotics are the products of bacterial fermentation. So they're the products of the microbiome economy. So I'll break down these few things, and I think all of these can be brought in and as tools within the toolbox to improve your gut health. There's prebiotics, which is things like fiber, resistant starches, antioxidants, polyphenols. These all act like food for the probiotics. Probiotics are the beneficial bacteria in our gut, upwards of 100 trillion of them in the gut. And the specific colonies that have research have shown to be beneficial for certain things, right? I mean, some are better for digestion, some are better for regulating the immune system. So getting a full spectrum of different types of colony forming units of probiotics can have a synergistic effect. There's another class of biotics that are called parabiotics, which are, for all intents and purposes, they're dead probiotics. They're not alive anymore, but they have a balancing effect on the microbiome and they make the probiotics actually more gentle. Some people can take probiotics and it can cause them to have these Herxheimer responses or detox or die-off symptoms because it's modulating, it's balancing the microbiome. So I like pairing parabiotics with probiotics. And then the last thing, postbiotics. These products of bacterial fermentation. And there's studies that show these postbiotics are really good for something called mitophagy or mitochondrial autophagy. The autophagies, which is great for brain health too. It's the recycling, the renewal of our cells, and happens in the gut. It happens in our mitochondria. It happens in our brain. It's the cleaning system that happens through the night when we're sleeping for our brain health. Postbiotics enhance that. So I formulated something, it's from Longevity RX. It's called Probiotic Trillion, and it has all of those. It has prebiotics, probiotics, parabiotics, and postbiotics, and it's 1 trillion of these colony forming units. And I just take 1 capsule a day. So if someone had to do just one thing that loves their gut back in supplement form, I would say that combination of Probiotic Trillion does wonders.
My gosh, I love how you just broke that down and just the pre, the post, the this, the that, and all in one. We love an all in one. We love a 1 pill a day. That's fantastic. Thank you.
So, I mean, I really appreciated that education because it gets confusing. You're getting given all this information, and of course, diet and lifestyle is so important, right? But there's so much information, and I really appreciate the breakdown because it was really in English. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we always love to ask our guests that come on the Make Time podcast, what are you not making time for that you're going to commit to making time for today?
On the spot, I didn't prepare for this. Let me think. In truth, I think this is really good that you ask people this, especially people in the health space, because when people see people in health on social media, we could be a source of shame for people, right? Because we look like we have it all together and all we talk about, we never shut up about health. And then people think they compare themselves to people like me and other people, and they think I can never measure up. I'm not making time for a lot of different stuff. And I do this for a living. So I think giving ourselves grace is a powerful medicine. And self-compassion that we're all trying to figure things out and we're all busy and doing the best we can. So I would say, and we've talked about this, we talked about this offline, is that I'm not making time for stretching. And I have tight hamstrings. I really don't prioritize it. I have a bad attitude about stretching and mobility. I know it's good for me. I know all this randomized control trials of this stuff, but I do not make time for stretching. And as I'm getting older, I realize that this is something I need to do.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I told you, my story offline, is that I pulled and ripped my hamstring because my calf, not my hamstring. Because I wasn't stretching, and stretching is so important. My trainer's like, "Did you get the ball? Did you roll out on the foam roller?" No, Quack, I didn't roll out on the foam. I'm not going to spend my time rolling out. It's so painful. Who's got the time for it? But it's really important. Stretching is so important. So I love that you're going to commit today to making more time for stretching. Will.
You're calling me out on it. I need to do it.
I think we need to bring the founders of Stretch Lab on the Make Time podcast to give some actionable tips on how we could bring stretching into our everyday. And that's why we ask these questions.
Yeah. And you can have me back on the show during that Stretch Lab interview and then have an intervention in front of all the people because I need it.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. Where can our listeners find you?
They could check it all out at drwillcole.com, drwillcole.com. My podcast is called The Art of Being Well, but everything lives at drwillcole.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today and making time for us.
Thanks, Dr. Will. Love to have you on.
Thank you guys. Anytime.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope that listening to our podcast has empowered you to make more time for yourself. So make sure to subscribe. Please leave a review and share with a friend who could use a healthy reminder on the importance of making time.
And make sure to keep tuning in as we will continue to bring on incredible guests to share their Make Time tips on our upcoming episodes. And come say hi over at Make Time Pod or visit us at maketimewellness.com.
Until next time.